So in my vise here, I have a finished Lite Brite Perdigon, and the Lite Brite has been a staple Perdigon of mine for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. And I would say the most popular one's probably the Peacock or the Peacock Black or the Orange, but there's the pink is a really great color scheme, especially for the winter. This is a pattern that is really reliable for me during the lower light times of the year, and especially the colder water of winter. It really just seems to work during, December through March really well, or November through March. So if you're looking for a pattern to add to your winter box, this is one to definitely give a shot. Now, the one I have here has an inverting bead on it. This is a size 20 hook. And with the inverting bead, you can, get down pretty quickly without much without a very large bead on the hook. So this is a good option if you need some extra weight. But I'll tie one with a smaller 2mm bead for this tutorial. This is that's the kind of the correct size that most people would match with a size 20, or at least what looks most pleasing to the eye. But you can put a 2.3mm slotted bead on this. You could put that 2.5mm inverting bead like I had in the one in the clip there, or the finished one that I had in the vise. And you could even put a larger slotted bead if you wanted, as long as you can fit it on the hook. Certainly the trout will oftentimes take a larger bead, even though it may look a little bit funny to our eyes. All right, I just put 2mm tungsten bead on this hook and put it in the vise, and I'm going to start with some 16-aught Vivus pink thread. And one thing that I like to do whenever I'm tying Perdigons, I like to have a really good pair of scissors that has a very fine side to the blade. This is some Tiemco razor scissors. They really help to get the thread flush, because when you're tying Perdigons, it's easy for the thread to stick out. So I don't break the thread off typically when I'm tying Perdigons, in case I get a little fray of the thread that I can't cover up. And then I just try and use a pair of scissors that, like I say, gets that thread cut really close to the shank. All right, the first step after covering that shank with thread is to add some tail fibers. So I've got some Coq de Leon here. I'm just gonna measure it to length. I want it about the length of the shank, or maybe slightly shorter, but that's roughly about what you want. Do a pinch wrap. So hold those tail fibers in your fingers, and like this, just hold them on the shank. Put that thread in between your fingers, and there's no tension on it right now. I go under the hook and up, back around again, and I still don't have any tension on the thread yet, until I pull up and let it slide through my fingers. And that pinch wrap will anchor those tail fibers down directly on the back of the hook and make it so they're in line and not askew. Okay, so now we just need to add some crystal flash. This is pink, or UV pink crystal flash. And we're just going to add one strand. And I just do the same thing. I pinch wrap up at the front, and then slide it back until it's kind of under the wraps of thread, and that keeps it from, or keeps me from needing to trim it. All right. Wrap it back to the base of the tails there. You want it flush with the base of the tail. And then I'm just going to do touching turns on the way up. You'll notice I didn't build much of a body underneath. You don't want a fat body on Perdigons. The thinner they are, the quicker they sink. So I've left that body just as a thin layer of thread. Okay, I tie that off, and you could finish it just like this. But if you want to add a little bit of a hot spot to set it apart in the drift even some more, then I'm changing the thread here to some fluorescent pink UTC thread. You could also use orange. I like orange 16-aught Vivus a lot. And just make sure you've trapped that other thread underneath your thread wraps there. Okay, so then I'm just going to make a 3-turn whip finish. You don't want to make this hot spot overly large. Okay, so you could cover that in resin now, but I do like to add a little point of contrast here in the form of a black nail polish wing case. And normally I just do all my Perdigons to this point, do, you know, a half a dozen or a dozen of them, however many it is that I'm tying in a batch. And then I come back and I put resin on them afterward. But I forgot to have one ready to tie or to put the resin on at this point. So I'm just going to blow on this and try and dry it. All right, we'll see if that nail polish is ready to go. If not, it's gonna smudge a little bit, but that's okay. Okay, I've got some Solarez bone dry resin here, and I'm just gonna put a very light layer. And as I often demonstrate when I'm using this stuff, you don't want too much because you don't want it to be a big glob, and then if you do get extra, just touch the shaft of the brush to the shank up near the bead, and you should take care of it. It'll remove that extra. But that's it. That is the finished Lite Brite Perdigon in a pink color. And give it a shot, especially during the winter, and see if your local trout like it. I know they do around where I live, and they have across the West wherever I've tried this pattern. So it's definitely worth a shot on your local river too.